Flim Flam.
All right, seventh graders, you guys are going to go ahead and take a look at finding the slope of a line in this lesson. It's pretty easy. Just remember rise over run, and you'll be good to go. All right, let's hit it. The key concept for this lesson is all about slope. As you can read here, it is the rate of change between any 2 points on a line. And it measures the steepness of the line. So how steep this goes up or goes down. You can see to find slope, find the ratio of the change in y, that's vertical, to the change in x, that's horizontal, y over x. So the change in y over the change in x. You can see it written here, 3 over 2. It's easy. Any line has a slope. And you can figure that out by looking at the rate of change between those two values. Looking at these two examples, finding slopes, and they've written out in front of you, I just want to draw your attention to how to do this. This graph right here, this is a coordinate plane, and you can see that there's a point here at 0, 0, and a point here at 3, 4. Using those 2 points, you can figure out what is the steepness of this line, what is the change in y, and what is the change in x, and write that down. So the change in y is going to be 4. The change in x is going to be 3. Remember, the slope is y over x, so you're going to write down 4 over 3. The slope of this line is 4 over 3. Look at example B. You can see that this is another line, and even if you just look at both of them, this one is a little shallower steepness. Well, how much less is that? Well, let's look. The change in y over the change in x. You can see that x is 6 and y is 3. So you're going to have 3 over 6, which is reduced to 1/2. That is the slope. Here's your first problem from on your own, and we need to find out what is the slope of this line. How steep is this line? We need to take note of our coordinates here, 0, 0, and 5, 2, and then decide how we can figure this out. Remember, the change in y over the change in x will give us our slope. So let's go ahead and find out what is our change in x. So we can go on the x, which is the horizontal axis here, and count how many jumps from the dot at 0, 0 all the way to the plotted point 5, 2. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we know that our x is going to be 5. And then we're going to go ahead and look at our y, and that is going to be 1, 2. So our slope, we have found out, will actually be 2 over 5. Number 2 is a little tricky for figuring our slope. We need to make sure we pay attention to the intervals in our axis, the y-axis and the x-axis. Here you can see that the x-axis goes up by 1s and the y-axis goes up by 2s. So when we figure out what our x is and our y is, we need to pay attention to that. Also take note that this point is in between the actual crosshairs. So finding slope using the plotted points, we cannot use this for that. We need to use one that is directly on our crosshair, so that would be here at the origin, which is 0, 0, and this one, which is at 2, 6. We can go ahead and count that over, and we can find what our x value would be by counting from 0, 0 over to directly under 2, 6, and that is 2 jumps. So our x is going to be 2, and if we count up to our y value, we count straight up, and that goes by 2, so that's going to be 2, 4, 6. So our top number will be 6. This actually reduces down to 3. So our slope is 3. Here's a great example of slope in a real-life setting. The table you can see shows earnings for babysitting, and A says to graph the data. They did that for you already, and find the intercept and the slope. So let's take a look at what they gave us. You can see this line right here has some plotted points, and they use the chart to do that. 0, 0, which would be our origin, and we have 2, 10, all right, 2 and 10, and then 4 and 20, and 6 and 30, and so on. Each of these have been plotted. Now, a line has been drawn through them, and they took a look at between two of the points, what is the change in X and what is the change in Y. You can see that the hours go up by 1, and you can see that the earnings in dollars goes up by 10. So their slope they wrote down between the two. There is 4 jumps here, that is our X value, and $20 is the change right there. So you have 20 over 4 as a fraction reduces down to 5. So the slope is $5 per hour. Real life slope. Number 3 is a little tricky in figuring out our slope using 2 other points. So I'm going to circle 2 points, and we're going to use these 2 points to figure out what our slope is. So I'm going to circle this point right here, which is going to be 2, 10. That is our coordinate there. And I'm also going to be looking at this one, which is going to be 10, 50. Now, finding out what our X value is, I will do this in green, and we'll count all the way from this first coordinate up here, and we'll count all the way over, and that will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That is our X value, and we'll count up from here to from that point to find our Y value, and that goes by 10, so we'll go 10, 20, 30, 40. So we'll have 40 over 8, which reduces to 5 if you divide that out. That is our slope. As we saw in problem 3, the slope did not change. Let's take a look at these 2 lines and try to answer A when we want to compare this. This is a graph that shows your earnings of you and your friend babysitting, and you can see these 2 different lines. Your friend is blue and you are green. How do you compare them? What is this telling you when you look at hours versus earnings in dollars? If you think about this line is less steep, the green line is less steep than the blue line. Just think about this. If you worked 4 hours, you made 20 bucks. Your friend worked 4 hours, and your friend made how much? $10 more. So what did that tell you? That steeper line, that steeper slope, means that your friend is getting more money per hour. When finding the slope of the blue line, there's a couple of things we needed to take note of. Number 1 is our coordinate points here. What are the values here? We need to make sure that we always start from one of the dots that are directly on the crosshairs, as we talked about the graph before, and we can figure out what our change in Y is and our change in X is. So we're going to find X first, and I'll put that underneath that orange line, and I'm going to count all the way from the origin to directly under one of the other dots. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That is my X value. Now I can say, well, what is my Y value? It doesn't look like it's directly on one of the crosshairs, but I can see that the Y value is going to be 28. So all I need to do is put 28 over here and reduce. And that actually turns into, what's 28 divided by 4? That would be 7. So that tells me that your friend makes $7 per hour. Okay, guys, that is your lesson for today. Your secret word is pizza. So have fun trying to figure out the rest of the slopes for your assignment today, and you'll do a great job. Just remember, rise over run, and you're good to go.